So today we're going to take a look at our first lesson on our Unit 9. So go and highlight your learning target up at the top so I can determine if ratios are proportional. And we've seen proportional relationships because that's what our whole Unit 8 was over. So now we're just going to take a look at proportions. And this is our first lesson on talking about what proportions are. We're going to spend 2 days over lesson 9A, the first day just getting familiar with what a proportion is and how to solve them. And then the second day we'll spend some time doing some story problems. So overall in your learning target where it says I can determine if ratios are proportional, we're just going to underneath here kind of write in some alternate words we can use for them. So instead of ratios, underneath the word ratios, go ahead and write fractions. And then underneath the word proportional, go ahead and write equal. So all we're checking to see is we're checking to see if ratios are proportional, or in other terms, we're checking to see if fractions are equal. So I'm going to give you two fractions and you're going to check to see if those two fractions are equal. So before we move on, I do have some vocab words I need us to fill out. Your first vocab word is equivalent ratios. Your second vocab word is proportion. So go ahead and pause the video and fill in these vocab words. Okay, so equivalent ratios, those are ratios that name the same comparison. So let's just kind of write in some examples of equivalent ratios. If you have 1/2, it means you would eat like 1 out of 2 pieces of a candy bar. That's also the same as 2/4. That's also the same as 3/6. That's the same as 4/8. And we could keep going and going and going. So ratios that name the same comparison. Eating 1 out of the 2 pieces of the candy bar is the same as eating 2 of the 4 pieces, which is the same as eating 3 of the 6 pieces. So it's all a half. You're eating a half of a candy bar. Okay. A proportion is a little bit different in the sense that it's an equation. We've already learned equation in a previous unit, but a proportion is an equation that tells you, it states that 2 ratios or 2 fractions are equivalent or equal. So all that means, and using the same example we had from last time, I'll use 1/2 and 2/4. We know that those are the same. So proportion would just be putting an equal sign in the middle, just showing me that this ratio is equivalent to that ratio. 1/2 is equal to 2/4. Okay, so for the first part of this, I'm just going to give you 2 ratios and you have to tell me if they are proportional. Tell me if these 2 fractions are equal. So let's kind of scroll down to this page. And it might be towards the bottom of your 9A notes. And on this page right here, the first 6 questions, I give you some fractions and I ask you if they're proportional. Well, there's 2 ways to decide this. The first way you can determine if they're proportional is to simplify the fractions. And the second way, which we will spend more time doing, is to find the cross product. Okay, so starting with simplifying, and we know how to simplify fractions, and also it's nice because our Desmos calculator will do it for us. Remember here, when we're saying are the ratios proportional, we're saying are these fractions equal? That's what I'm asking. So if we use the simplify method to figure it out, let's look at this first example, and I need to simplify each of these. So simplify 7/5, simplify 21/15, and then your answer here is going to be yes, they are proportional, or no, they are not proportional. Okay, which means when I divide these, when I simplify these, do I get the same thing? So 7/5, if you don't already know that it doesn't simplify, you can type it into your Desmos and push the fraction button, and you still get 7/5. So I know 7/5 just stays as 7/5, and then try 21/15. So type that in, 21/15, push your fraction button, and notice you also get 7/5. Okay, so the first fraction was already simplified at 7/5. Your second fraction, when you type it in, it simplifies to 7/5. And just think back to our previous unit, how we did like y divided by x and y divided by x, and you had to make sure you got the same number. Same thing here, you're dividing it, and you're checking to see if you get the same fraction or the same decimal even. You could put 1.4 and 1.4. So either way, these do simplify to the same fraction, or they do divide to the same number. So we say yes, they are proportional. Let's try another one. And again, you can just type these into your Desmos. So I have 12/9, I have 4/3, I know 4/3 does not simplify anymore. So let's look at 12/9, and in your calculator, go ahead and simplify 12 over 9 and see what you get. All right, so when we simplify that, 12 over 9, push the fraction button, gives us 4/3. Okay, if you get the same fraction, then we say yes, they are proportional, meaning yes, those fractions are equal when we simplify them. Okay, on your own, go ahead and try number 3. So write down what you get after you simplify your fractions, and then tell me yes or no if they are proportional or not. All right, so 4/24 I know simplifies to 1/6. 2/6 simplifies to 1/3, and you can just type those in to figure that out. Those are not the same fraction, so I would say no. Those are not proportional. All right, and then we have one more way to figure that out. So if you don't want to worry about simplifying your fractions, which you really don't because you just type it into your calculator, but you can simplify it, or we're mostly going to focus on finding cross products because to solve proportions, we also are going to do cross products with that. So a couple things I'm going to show you in this first example what a cross product looks like. And in the word cross product, there's two things happening. The word cross means you look diagonally, so across. And then the word product, the product is the answer to a multiplication problem. So that would mean that you're going to multiply the diagonals. So the cross product means multiply the diagonals. So what I mean by that, in this first example, and I'm just going to highlight diagonally, you have 3 and 20, you have 6 and 10. I'm going to do cross product. So I know 3 times 20 is 60. So I'm going to write 60 right there. I know 10 times 6 is also 60. Okay, so I just did 3 times 20, that gave me 60. I did 6 times 10, that also gave me 60. Since I got the exact same number here, then my answer is yes. These are proportional. If you'd rather simplify them, you can do it that way. You would get 3/10 for both of them if you simplified them, but you can do cross products as well. Okay, let's try another one. So you have 12 and 4. Remember, cross means diagonal, product means multiply. 12, 24, 36, 48. This gives me 48. 24 times 2 is also 48. I got the same number when I multiplied diagonally. So 12 times 4 is 48. 24 times 2 is also 48. So I'm going to say yes. These ones are also proportional because they have the same cross product. Okay, last one. Go ahead and try this one. So using cross product, so multiplying diagonally, what do you get here? What do you get here? And then tell me yes or no whether they're proportional or not. Okay, so I know 8 times 8 is 64, and then 16 times 5 is 80. I did not get the same number when I multiplied diagonally, so my answer here will just be no. Those are not proportional. Okay, all right, along the same lines as cross products, what we're going to start doing now is our answer here was yes, so I know that these two fractions, 12/24 and 2/4, I know that those are both equal. What I'm going to start doing now is I'm going to get rid of one of these numbers and I'm going to replace it with an x. And I'm going to say, okay, what does this number have to be in order to make these two fractions equal? Okay, and to figure this out, we're also going to do cross products. So up at the top here on your first page of your notes, let's write in the word underneath these other definitions that we had. Right next to or underneath where it says cross products, let's write in our definition. So a cross product is just a product, which just means multiplying, of the numbers on the diagonals. Okay, so the whole cross part of it means diagonally. The word product part means you multiply. So go ahead and take a second and write down that definition. Okay, and let's try some examples. So here in this first example, like I said, I want these two fractions to be equal. So that means I've got to figure out what does this letter have to be, what number has to go in place of that letter in order for my two fractions to be equal. To figure that out, we're always going to use cross product. So to do that, I'm going to multiply diagonally. I always start with the diagonal that has the letter. In this case, the letter is T. So I'm going to start with my yellow diagonal. And this is where we did equations before proportions because you need equations to help solve proportions. So when I do this cross product, this diagonal, when I multiply 6 and T, I get 6T. So we're going to write 6T. And then we take this equal sign, we just drop it right down. And then when I multiply this diagonal, 3 times 10, That gives me 30. Okay, so my cross product of this proportion, my whole cross product here, is this. 6t equals 30. Now we use what we know about equations. Remember how we draw our line straight down? And then right now I have to get t all by itself. There's a 6 being multiplied right next to it. So to undo multiplying by 6, I'm going to divide by 6, cross it off. What you do on the left side, you got to do on the right side. So now I have t equals, and then I know 30 divided by 6 is 5. Okay, so what that tells me is that this missing number right here has to be 5 in order for my two fractions to be equal. And you can always check it to make sure your answer is correct. So in your calculator, if you type, well, 5/3 is already simplified, but if you type in 10/6, check to see if it simplifies to 5/3, and it will. So 5 is the only number you can plug in right there for the letter t in order to make these two fractions equal. Okay, let's try a few more examples. All right, so I have 2 and 30. I have 15 and x. I always start with the diagonal with the letter, so I'm going to start with this diagonal. I have 15 times x is 15x. And then the other diagonal, I have 2 times 30, which gives me 60. So there's my cross product part. Okay, so I looked diagonally and I multiplied. When I did that, I got 15x equals 60. I'm going to get x all by itself, so divide by 15 here, cross it off, divide by 15 here, x equals, and I know 15 fits inside of 60 4 times. And again, if you want to, you can always double check and see if I plug in a 4 right here, these two fractions should simplify to the same thing, okay? 15 over 30 I know is 1/2 because 15 is half of 30. 2 over 4 is also 1/2 because 2 is half of 4. So I know that that answer makes sense. Okay, let's try a few more. So down here, we got about 6 more questions. We'll just do a few of them just to practice this a little bit more. So let's take a look at number 7. I'll do one more with you and then I'll have you try some on your own. Okay, so we have that diagonal, we have this diagonal. I always start with the diagonal that has the letter. So 24 times n is 24n. 4 times 6 is 24. I have to get n all by itself. So I have to divide by 24 on this side. That cancels it out. Divide by 24 here. 24 divided by 24 gives me 1. So I know n equals 1. And again, you don't have to do this, but if you want to, if you plug in a 1 right here, you have 1/6 over here, and you have 4/24 over here. 4 over 24 will simplify to 1/6. So I know that 1 is my correct answer for number 7. All right, let's take a look at, let's do these bottom 3. So we're going to do 10, 11, and 12. So take a look at number 10. I'm going to help you with the cross product part. So diagonally, you're doing this times this, and then you're going to do this times this. I'm going to tell me, what do you get for your cross product on this one? All right, so when you multiply diagonally, I know 70 times n is 70n. I know 50 times 7, 5 times 7 is 35. So throw a 0 behind it. Okay, divide by 70. Divide by 70. So I have n equals 5. Okay, and again, if you want to plug it in, you can, but that's all we got. Okay, first step is this. You have to show me this step. You have to show me 70n equals 350. If you don't want to show this, that's fine, but you must show me the cross product and you must show me your final answer. All right, number 11, I'm going to highlight for you, and then I'll have you guys do your cross products on your own and your final answer. So for number 11, go ahead and do your cross products and then tell me, what does n have to be? What's your final answer? All right, so I know 14 times n, I would write 14n. 7 times 6 is 42. I have to get n by itself, so let's divide by 14. Over here, divide by 14. Okay, and I know 42 divided by 14 gives me 3. Okay, so my final answer here is n equals 3. Okay, one more. Number 12. Go and do your cross product, and I need your final answer. All right, so here's our cross product. We do this. 5 times n gives us 5n. 6 times 10 equals 60. Divide by 5. Divide by 5. 60 divided by 5 is going to give us 12. Here we go. And if you want to, you can plug in a 12 right here. I know 6 over 12 is 1/2, and 5 over 10 is also a half, so I know that my answer makes sense. If you want to try those extra 2 examples, number 8 and 9, feel free. I have the completed notes posted for you, but overall, we're just looking at fractions and either telling me whether or not they're equal or telling me what does the missing number have to be in order to make our fractions equal. And that's all proportions are. Proportions are just 2 fractions that are equal to each other. So feel free to rewatch any part of this video if you need to, and then we just have a little more extra practice that we'll do.